Hello everyone, I'm Suzanne Wagner and let's talk about January 2018. First of all, oh my gosh, we made it through 2017. I know everyone is so happy to be able to say goodbye to 2017. I Many of you know of me as being energetically the optimist, and so these particular times are much more challenging for all of us that love to stay in the positive and be optimistic, especially when you look at the astrology and the numerology and you recognize that we're kind of in a challenging cycle. And this is not to be discouraging because I believe that we discover our strengths when we are challenged. And I think that oftentimes creative, innovative, new ideas only come about when things kind of get really awful and get really difficult. So I believe there is a way to stay positive in the midst of the negative, and I want to keep that in mind as we try and navigate all of this. In a nutshell, December 19th of 2017, we ended Saturn being in Sagittarius, and it went into Capricorn. And while Saturn belongs to Capricorn, and Saturn likes to be in Capricorn in its home place, it's a lot of cold, dry, sometimes bitter, sometimes melancholic energy that has sort of a serious tone to it. And we already have Pluto over there, and Pluto is the planet of death, rebirth, transformation, and change. And so Pluto's kind of been putting us all through the ringer a little bit related to this anyway. So now we've got kind of these two heavy hitters. We've got these two dark planets in the darkest sign, the winter solstice sign of Capricorn, which puts kind of an intensity on things. On top of that, we have the fact that the first kind of 17 days of January, we're just getting more and more Capricorn. So we're just getting everything is kind of going into Capricorn. And so it's gonna feel a little heavy. It's gonna feel a little dense. For me, the way through such times is organization and structure, because Saturn in Capricorn wants to have a structure. So what I would do and what I am doing is just methodically going through everything in an order and creating a plan and sticking with the plan and staying on top of things and not letting things get underneath things and kind of erode the base of something. It's going to take a lot of logistics and thinking, and I can tell you for myself that I'm busy, trying to put all the plans together and all the structures and then go, oh my gosh, I missed this part. Oh my gosh, I missed that part. So know that you're going to be making these constant little adjustments as Saturn makes us get more responsible in a very earthy, practical, grounded, pragmatic sort of way. Now, Saturn in Capricorn, I do not think has to be gloom and doom. But if you are not taking responsibility, it could get really rough, because everything is about showing up at this point. And this whole year of 2018, which if you add the 2 and the 0 and the 1 and the 8 together, you get an 11. And the 11 is associated in my world with Leonardo da Vinci. And Leonardo da Vinci was brilliant and innovative and cutting edge and doing very different things. But he also was going against the established norm quite a bit. And he was getting himself in trouble because he was going against that established norm. And so he was bucking the system, and he was forcing people out of their little box and making them think from a broader overview place. The 11 is a synthesizer. It's a synthesizer of information. It tries to pull a little bit from here, 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 and kind of chew them up, digest them, and spit out something brand new. So that's what we're going to be doing, and that is sometimes a little hard. It's hard to kind of take one piece of this and 3 pieces of this and 2 pieces of that and somehow come up with something that could work for the greater whole. And it's fraught with difficulty, because if you separate the 11 and you go 1 and 1 and you add them, you actually get a 2. And the two can make people fall into kind of a negative mind, critical mind, gloomy place. Now, I don't want you to do that. I want you to stay in the 11, which is about transcendence and thinking from the bigger picture and thinking from that place of overview rather than kind of get caught into this, very like criticizing, not constructive feedback place. So we want to keep the overview. We want to keep thinking outside of the box. We want to recognize that what we're trying to create right now has never been done, just like Leonardo making a helicopter. It had never been done, and it didn't mean it wasn't possible. It just means that it hadn't been done yet. So we're in a time, and think of it like Leonardo trying to make the helicopter. His idea was completely sound, but we didn't quite have the right construction materials. Wood was too heavy. They didn't have metal yet. So these ideas that might have been good ideas, they didn't have quite have all the pieces put together to make it a viable thing. So the 11 is this place where we're trying to co-create, expand out of density, and think in a very innovative, new sort of way. But the negative side of it is that it sometimes feels a little fractured and fragmented. It can make you feel like you know a lot about a lot of things, but nothing is exactly working and nothing is quite coming together because you're so busy juggling 30 balls in the air that you feel like you can't do any one thing completely perfectly. So again, don't get discouraged. This is how we stretch. If you have to juggle 30 balls in the air and you don't know that you can juggle 30 balls in the air, then you have to practice and you're going to drop a few balls along the way. And that is going to be this year. So don't get frustrated. Don't get discouraged. Allow the expression and the expansion to kind of be a joyous experiment maybe as we move forward. Now, we have all weathered this intensity of December, which was a big month. And I'd like to say January is a less big month, but I can't actually say that. So the first 17, 19 days of January are heavy. And that's why I said it's all ruled by Capricorn. It's all about being practical. It's about getting down to what you really need to do and no more avoiding and no more sidestepping. And I kind of go waking up sometimes is hard to do. And so you need to carefully consider where you're stepping because you are kind of in a minefield of life at the moment. And while the number 11 is trying to uplift your soul to a higher plane of consciousness, existence, and clarity, the 2, that negative mind, wants to kind of drag you back into past wounding or past habits and patterns that probably just don't serve you anymore. It's time to change them. So now, you remember that you have a choice. And you can always have a choice about your attitude and how you choose to embrace growth, how you maturely look at challenges as they arise, how you understand that being constructive and in life is sometimes about responsibility and choice, and recognizing sometimes that you have to change paths. And the 11, because it's sort of a fragmented energy, is really a number that is about flexibility and adaptability. And I know that there's all this energy that's in Capricorn and it's very grounded and practical, but this year is a year that needs to be highly adaptable. What I mean by that is that things are going to change suddenly, and you have to be able to adapt to that. And you can't hang on to your old position or pattern or way of doing things. That the people that are going to be the most successful are the people that are passionate at finding that connection that gives you energy and joy and is essential for your growth, that embraces sort of the wild and woolly chaos, as an interesting challenge for growth, that stays grounded by taking really, really good care of your physical health and making yourself a physical priority. So for me, looking at all this energy in Capricorn, I have to say honestly, I kind of like it. I mean, I like structure. It doesn't constrict me. It actually allows me to feel like I'm getting somewhere because I have a series of steps that I can accomplish and I can move forward. And so I sort of embrace the density a little bit and say, hey, the adaptability right now is in structure and having a plan, following through with the plan, and keeping the plan on target. I warned everybody about this last year, that it was like, pick a goal and head towards that goal knowing that everything's going to try and pull you off of that. Well, at this point, something's not trying to pull you off of it. It's trying to actually get you even more on track. And where you are not mature in your sense of responsibility for yourself, your health, your well-being, your family, your money, your finances, is going to get really crystal clear, as we go through this year. Now, passion. And finding that connection is going to be really important. Part of that is because Jupiter is in Scorpio. And Jupiter is this big gas giant that is shining a bright light into the dark corners and recesses of things that you probably didn't want anybody shining a light in that corner. I like to think of this as a major cleaning house. It's that place where suddenly you come in and you lift all the furniture up and there's little dust bunnies everywhere. And you just need to clean that out. And so it's healthy to do that. It's constructive to do this. It's practical to do this. And so you might find yourself cleaning things out, cleaning out closets, organizing things really differently. Again, with all this energy in Capricorn, I mean, I was rearranging my barn. And so tearing it apart, putting it back together, getting rid of stuff, taking things to the dump. So, kind of recognize that this doesn't have to be miserable. It's your attitude about it that is either going to make you miserable or not. And it'll actually make you feel better if you just get a plan, stick with a plan, clear it out, create some space, be able to breathe a little bit more, rather than, it takes a lot of energy to avoid things. Jupiter in Scorpio is definitely about owning your shadow and learning to integrate it in a fully healthy and constructive sort of way. So in January, we are at this perfect place of new beginnings because there's this huge full moon and, there's so much happening that's just like, woohoo, new energy, new beginning. And when I pulled the cards for this month, the cards also had a lot of aces, and aces are about new beginnings and new energy and new vitality and new love and new possibilities and new money focus and new ideas. So if you hadn't noticed, your mind and how you think and how you see and how you interact in the world has changed a lot last year. And you don't have rose-colored glasses on at this point at all. And this sort of intense reality is staring you in the face. And people, great people, strong people, rise to the occasion even in the moment where they're not necessarily going to get what they want. And so staying in a pleasant state when you're not necessarily going to get what you want, again, is a choice. So we're in winter. We're in the darkest time of the year. It's cold. It's a time of going within. It's about looking inside as to what you want. It's about not expecting the world to spark you, but to find the spark inside of yourself. Like, how do you keep your inner fires burning? How do you keep your spirit enlivened? How do you inspire yourself to move forward when the external is not necessarily reflecting how you feel actually on the inside? And this is this great moment where you recognize that I am not just this external reflection. I mean, I am myself and where I am at inside of myself, but the external world is going through a conflagration of change. And where am I doing that inside? And maybe where do I need to let the world do that and me stay in a really calm, peaceful place? No one's going to hold your hand this year. It's going to be up to you. And since that's the case, you could really do whatever you want. You could mold and create your reality exactly how you want it. And building blocks are made to be broken. The old consistent buildings of your past self has fallen down into a million pieces like Humpty Dumpty. And you have the material to rebuild, but nothing will ever look the same again if you do that. So, do you want to rebuild with the old material? Probably not. You probably want to try something totally, completely different. I like to think of this even as the fires in California. There was a gentleman in the Valley Fire many years ago that had built a fireproof house, and he was in the Valley Fire and his house survived. So maybe we should start creating rules that say in fire-prone areas that you have to build these fireproof houses. It's doable. It's been proven that it can be done. So why not look at construction completely differently than maybe we have done before? And this process that we're in between now and 2024 is about bringing these new Aquarian, innovative, consciousness-oriented ideas more and more into the forefront. And I know we're just at the beginning of this right now, but I think that it can grow by 2024. If you've not told yourself the truth, it's going to be a difficult year. Acceptance is going to be the key to kind of help you manifest this new future. So, each of us is here for a reason. I don't believe any of us are accidentally here at this particular planet at this particular time during this huge transition of consciousness. I think that we all picked it to be here. So instead of collapsing, why not go, woohoo? This is that moment that, we could really embrace our greatest potential, and this will force us to step up in some way. The universe and the world needs something that you're hiding on the inside, and you maybe don't know where you put it, and maybe it's time to go searching for that so that it can emerge out of its long and deep slumber and help make a right choice and a right action for you. Because right action in this entire year is going to be essential, because there's a higher origin of justice, and to me there's a huge difference between sacred law and human law. And I go, if it's right or if it's wrong. You do. And you have to hold true to what's right on your inside, no matter what. And you don't want to be on the wrong side of this, because even if, the human law says, oh yeah, you get away with that, on a karmic law level, the consequences are really high. And the sacred law is pretty real at this point. So within you is a shadow part. We're all light, we're shadow, we're both. We're a mixture of those both. And I always say within me is a beast. And that beast can oftentimes be associated with power that you have not expressed in the world. And that beast is coming out of the shadow. And notice, I don't think this beast is a bad beast. I think this beast is this power part of yourself that is a shamanic ally as you move forward, if you're willing to recognize the magic that is held inside your darkest corners. It's time for you to find your strength and to see that reflected in the world in some way. It's time for you to have courage to take a risk and to not be afraid of movement and change. And, if you're afraid of the world and what's happening in the world, you're afraid of your own potential. And ego is going to attempt to make you stay within the limitations that have been comfortable for you and help you go smoothly without ruffling too many feathers. But 2018 is about getting your feathers ruffled and you ruffling a lot of feathers also in the process. And so I don't want you to allow the fear, the atmosphere of fear, to grab your soul and tear at your soul. I want you to care less about what other people think, and I want you to care more about right action, right choices for your personal values and goals. We're kind of in this time where acts of social and conscious rebellion are going to help you discover your purpose. So fire is coming. I mean, look at all the fires that have been happening in California, still are going on in California. And I want you to recognize that you have to respect it, you have to choose it, and you have to walk across it. I like to think of this when I was fire walking, and I loved fire walking. It was awesome. What I learned about fire walking is that you have to become one with the fire. You have to own the fire that is within you. And you have to move consciously. So you can't spontaneously move unconsciously. You wait for the clear yes, and then you move. And when you get that clear yes, you don't hesitate. And this is one of those life force essential lessons that if you move when you get the yes and you don't resist the yes when you're told to move and you don't overanalyze it, a lot more freedom can come out of that. You are going to notice the chains that you have bound yourself with, the beliefs, the circumstances, the woundings that you bind yourself with mentally. And the mind loves to tell you what to do. And the mind loves to define who you are. And you are actually pure energy inhabiting a body, and that energy can realign the body. It can change things in a multitude of ways, but you have to fully love who you are and all of your energy in order for that energy to be able to mold and shape things. So, I think the world and individual people in the world are getting sick and tired of other people holding up a sign defining who they are. And instead of that, I think you want to let go of your definition of self. And it's like a yoke around your neck that has been weighing you down. And instead, discover maybe who you really are. Do you want to live your life expressing someone else's production of who you are? Are you sick and tired of people having these narrow definitions of this or that or who you are because of the color of your skin or your work choice? So again, these boundaries are being loosened and reshaped this year in the world. It's time for you to recognize that safety is not healthy when it has restriction. And safety needs to have a lot of flexibility and movement. And there's hope if you allow that safety to be more fluid. Choose change. Yeah, that's just the easiest way I can say it. It's like you have to choose change, because if you don't change, you start to die on the inside. And, if you refuse to adjust when everything in the world is pointing in a very, very new direction, the force of that resistance is going to drain the very life force from you. And is that really what you want? I mean, I don't think that's what you want. And so you are being put in a position or a predicament this year. And it's about letting go of anything that is toxic to you. So, toxic people, toxic situations, drama, anything that knee jerks you back into a constricted place You need to take a look at that and decide whether that serves you or if it doesn't serve you. All of your choices need to reveal truth. All of your choices need to be slow and cautious. All of your choices need to be life affirming. So don't let those who have fear and hate and intend to harm let you like snuff out your compassionate self. Don't let them do that. Just don't let them do that. Because there's so much right now that could be looked at very exciting. Like, this is an amazing time. I mean, again, I don't believe anyone is here without wanting to be here in this particular moment. So since I'm here, what do I want to do? What's the impact that I want to have? How can I use that constructively? I need to move from my own personal moral values and stay very conscious to all of the change and adapt to each change as it shows up, knowing that there's going to be change after change after change after change this year. Don't let that many changes fragment your definition of who you see yourself to be. Instead, really align with your core essence instead. Whew. Okay. So, thanks everybody for listening. Bye.